when a millionaire tried to embarrass a humble waitress. He didn't expect her music to silence the whole room and change her life forever. The sun was beginning to set over the city when the expensive black cars started arriving at the mansion gates. The house belonged to Victor Harrow, a man known for his money, his arrogance, and his taste for showing off. He was a millionaire, maybe even a billionaire, and he loved nothing more than throwing parties where everyone could see how rich and powerful he was. His mansion stood like a palace on the hill, shining under the golden sky with fountains, lights, and music already filling the air before the night even started. Guests stepped out of the luxury cars dressed in sparkling clothes, shiny shoes, and expensive jewelry. There were celebrities, famous businessmen, politicians, and influencers. They all smiled, posed for pictures, and greeted each other like old friends even if they barely knew one another. This was not just a party. It was a competition too. Look better, to sound smarter, and to be seen with the most important people in the room. It wasn't about fun. It was about status. Inside the mansion, everything looked perfect. Tall flower arrangements stood like statues in the hallways, the scent of roses mixing with perfume in the air. A jazz band was already playing soft music in one corner of the room. Waiters and waitresses, dressed in black and white uniforms, moved around silently, serving drinks on trays made of silver and food that looked too beautiful to eat. Everyone looked relaxed, but the truth was, even the smallest mistake could bring embarrassment in front of people who were always ready to judge. Among the waitstaff was a girl named Emily. She had tied her hair neatly. Her uniform was clean and ironed, and she kept her eyes low, quietly doing her work. Emily was not like the others. She didn't come from money or fame. She lived in a small apartment downtown and worked 2 part-time jobs just to pay for school and rent. No one at the party knew, but Emily was a music student. Her true love was the piano. She had learned it from her grandfather, who used to be a concert pianist before he passed away. She didn't have her own piano anymore, but she still practiced. Wherever she could, at school, at a friend's house, even on a keyboard she borrowed from a neighbor. Tonight, Emily had no plans to talk to anyone. She just wanted to do her job, keep her head down, and finish her shift. She had served at parties before, but none like this. People here looked at waiters as if they didn't exist. Some didn't say thank you. Some didn't even look at her when they took a glass from her tray. It didn't bother her much. She had grown used to it. She knew who she was, and she didn't expect kindness from people who thought they were better than everyone else. Victor Harrow was standing near the bar, laughing loudly with a group of his rich friends. He was wearing a dark green suit, rings on his fingers, and a shiny watch that probably cost more than most people's houses. He liked being the center of attention, telling big stories about his travels, his businesses, and the money he spent. He noticed Emily walking by with a tray of drinks and gave her a look, not a kind one, but the kind a man gives when he thinks someone is too quiet to speak up for themselves. He whispered something to his friends and they laughed. One of them said something about the waitstaff being too serious. Another asked if they even knew how to smile. Victor, enjoying the moment, raised his voice and called out to Emily. "Hey, you! You with the long face," he said, pretending to smile. "Do you do anything else besides carry drinks?" Emily stopped in her tracks. She looked up at him, unsure if he was serious or just being rude. She gave a polite smile and said nothing. She didn't want to cause trouble, but that only made Victor go further. "No, really," he said loudly. "I'm curious. You look like you have secrets. Maybe you have a hidden talent. What do you think, everyone? Should we give her a chance to impress us?" Some guests laughed awkwardly. A few just turned away, pretending not to hear. Emily stood still, her face calm, but her heart starting to beat faster. She didn't like attention, especially not the kind that felt like a joke. Victor walked over to her holding a glass of wine. "There's a piano over there," he said, pointing to the grand black piano in the corner of the room. "Why don't you play us something? Surely you know at least one song." Emily's hands tightened around the tray. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no. She just looked at the piano. It had been a long time since she had played something real, not just notes during practice or warm-up scales. Her fingers missed the keys. But this was not a stage. This was a trap, and she could feel it. Another guest joined in, laughing. "Yes, Let her play. This should be fun. Emily looked around the room. Everyone was watching now. Some were curious. Some were clearly waiting for her to make a mistake. She could see someone already taking out a phone. Victor stood back, smiling like a man ready to enjoy a circus act. Inside her, two voices were arguing. One said, "Walk away. This is not your fight. You're here to work." The other said, "Show them. Show them what they don't expect." She put down her tray gently on a nearby table. The room grew quiet. A few people whispered to each other. Was she actually going to do it? Emily walked slowly toward the piano. Each step felt heavy, not because of fear, but because of everything the moment meant. She remembered her grandfather's voice, always calm, telling her that music wasn't about showing off, it was about telling the truth. She sat on the bench and took a deep breath. Victor chuckled behind her. This better be good. She placed her hands on the keys. For a second, her fingers froze. The room was full of strangers. The lights were too bright, but then she closed her eyes. She didn't see the mansion anymore. She saw her grandfather's old living room, where the piano sat in the corner. She saw herself as a little girl, barely tall enough to reach the pedals. She felt safe. Her fingers moved slowly, pressing the first few notes. It was soft, almost like a whisper, but it was enough to catch everyone's ear. People who had been talking stopped. Those who were sipping drinks held their glasses still. Victor's smile faded just a little. Emily continued playing. Her music started filling the room like light spreading through a dark hallway. Her hands moved faster now, more confident. She wasn't playing just to impress. She was speaking through the piano. The notes were rich, full of emotion, and every chord told a story. It wasn't loud, but it was strong. It wasn't fancy, but it was honest. Her music didn't scream, it spoke. A few guests slowly walked closer. One whispered, "Who is she?" Another said, "She's incredible." Victor was still standing with his drink in hand, frozen, no longer laughing. His friends looked confused. This wasn't what they expected. Emily kept playing, her whole world inside that music. For the first time that night, she wasn't just a waitress in a black uniform. She was herself a musician, a dreamer, a fighter. Damn. Every note she played came from years of practice, pain, and love. She didn't need anyone's permission to shine. When she finally stopped, the last note floated in the air like the last word of a powerful sentence. There was silence. No one moved. And then suddenly applause broke out. People clapped. Some even stood. The same guests who had ignored her now couldn't stop talking about her. Someone asked for her name. Another asked if she had an album. Victor didn't say a word. Emily stood up quietly and walked back to her tray. Her heart was still beating fast, but not from fear anymore. She didn't need to say anything. Her music had said it all, and deep inside, she knew something had changed tonight. Emily stood beside the table where she had placed her tray, trying to steady her breathing. The music was still alive in her chest. Her fingers could feel the last note. She had poured everything she had into that piano, and even though people had clapped and even cheered, she didn't allow herself to get lost in that moment. She reminded herself she was still a waitress in this room, no matter how she played, no matter how they clapped. She wiped her palms on her apron and picked up her tray again, ready to disappear back into the crowd like nothing had happened. But Victor Haro wasn't going to let that happen so easily. He stood near the drinks bar, staring at her with narrowed eyes, his smirk now gone. He had invited her to play, thinking he would make her a joke for the party. He'd imagined her sitting awkwardly at the piano, pressing a few wrong keys, and getting laughed at by his rich guests. He had been sure that she would embarrass herself and quietly walk away, proving what he believed, that people like her, simple, working-class people, didn't belong in rooms like his. But that's not what happened. Now, the joke was on him. Everyone was talking about the waitress who had played like a professional. People were whispering near the wine shelves, pointing at Emily. A few guests even walked up to her and complimented her performance. One elderly man said, "That was one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard." Another woman leaned close and whispered, "Don't let anyone dim your light." Victor's jaw tightened every time someone approached her. He took a deep sip of his wine and walked across the room to the group of guests he had been laughing with earlier. Well, he said, laughing loudly again, that was unexpected. His friends looked at each other, unsure whether to agree or just nod. Not bad for a waitress, huh? Victor added, trying to sound amused. One of his business partners, Mr. King, raised his eyebrows. Not bad. Victor, that girl's got more talent in her little finger than half the people who perform at those overpriced concerts you take us to. Victor forced a laugh. Come on, it wasn't that good. Oh, it was, someone else said. She was brilliant. Could hear the emotion in her playing. Victor tried to brush it off. All right. Maybe she's played before. Maybe it's just one piece she's memorized. Doesn't mean she's a genius. Let's not act like she's the next Mozart. But his voice lacked the confidence it had earlier. He didn't like losing control, not of people, not of moments. He had carefully planned this night to impress his guests with money, music, wine, and luxury. He didn't plan for a waitress. To steal the spotlight with the piano, the party continued. And the jazz band started playing again, but the vibe had shifted. People were no longer paying attention to the musicians. They kept glancing toward the corner where Emily had played. A small group had gathered nearby, hoping she might play again. Victor couldn't take it anymore. He whispered something to one of the staff members and called him over. Tell the girl not to play again, he said, pretending to sip his drink. But she's not playing again, sir, the staff member replied. Victor waved his hand. Just keep her in the kitchen. Or something. She's getting in the way. Meanwhile, Emily had gone back into the hallway behind the dining room. She leaned against the wall, trying to calm herself. The music was still echoing in her mind, but now doubt had returned. She started asking herself if she had made a mistake. Maybe Victor had let her play to embarrass her. Maybe this would cost her the job. She had taken a risk. Maybe too big of a risk. Another waitress named Carla, who had been working alongside her the whole evening, came to her and smiled. That was beautiful, Carla said. Where did you learn to play like that? Emily gave a small smile. Grandfather taught me he used to be a pianist. Well, if he could see you now, Carla said, he'd be proud. Emily felt warmth in her chest hearing that. But before she could say thank you, the staff supervisor came into the hallway. Emily, he said in a low voice. Mr. Harrow asked that you stay off the floor for the rest of the evening. Emily blinked. Did I do something wrong? He looked uncomfortable. He didn't say, but just stay in the back, all right? She nodded slowly. Okay, Violet. Looked shocked. He's punishing you for being amazing. Emily didn't answer. She just turned and walked into the kitchen, where it was quieter and less glamorous. The kitchen staff were busy working, but even some of them had heard what had happened. One of the chefs gave her a thumbs up. We heard the walls shake with. Beauty, he joked. Emily smiled politely. But inside she felt small again. She sat down on a wooden crate near the pantry and looked at her hands. These were the hands that had once played in her school's music hall, the hands that had held her grandfather's when he taught her to play softly, the hands that had dreamed of stages and bright lights but never reached them. For years she had buried those dreams under bills, jobs, and long shifts. And tonight, just for a few minutes, that dream had come alive again. But now she was being told to hide, to disappear. She didn't cry. She just sat quietly and stared at the door, back in the party. One guest, a woman named Evelyn Shaw, famous theater director, was still thinking about the girl at the piano. She asked one of the servers who Emily was, but no one knew her. Last name. Evelyn had spent years listening to music from around the world. But something in Emily's playing had touched her deeply. She walked over to Victor. Victor? Who is that young woman who played the piano? Victor gave a fake smile. Just one of the staff. Probably rehearsed that one piece 100 times. Evelyn frowned. She was exceptional. Victor shrugged. Maybe, but she's not a performer? Just got lucky, I guess. Do you know if she's played anywhere before? Evelyn asked. Victor laughed. Doubt it. It's probably just watches YouTube and copies things. Look, I hire her to serve drinks, not entertain. Let's not turn her into a star overnight. But Evelyn wasn't convinced. She made a mental note too. Find out who the girl was. As the night grew older, the party started to wind down. Guests began to leave, one by one, some still whispering about the girl and the piano. Victor watched them go with mixed feelings. His ego had taken a hit, and even the endless praise he was used to getting wasn't enough to distract him. Poured himself another drink and stared at the piano, as if it had betrayed him. Inside the kitchen, Emily was helping the other staff clean up. She didn't complain. She didn't talk about the piano. She just worked silently, folding napkins, collecting trays, and wiping counters. But she could feel something had shifted in her. For the first time in years, she had faced her fear. Faced people who didn't believe in her, and showed what she could do. Even if Victor had tried to make her look foolish, it had backfired. Carla came up to her again. "You know, my brother plays guitar. He'd love to jam with you sometime." Emily smiled maybe. "You okay?" Carla asked. "I'm fine," Emily said. "Just thinking." As they walked outside to help load the service van, the cool night air brushed against her skin. The stars above the city twinkled softly. Emily looked up and took a deep breath. She didn't know what would come next or if anything would come at all. But she knew one thing for sure. She didn't regret playing, not for 1 second. Inside the mansion, Victor sat alone by the piano now. He looked at the keys, still slightly warm from Emily's fingers earlier. He reached out and pressed a few notes. They sounded flat, lifeless. He sighed and poured himself another drink. The music had changed everything, but not in the way he had planned. Emily walked back into the kitchen after helping the others with cleanup. Her shift was almost over, and though she was tired, something inside her felt wide awake. The night had been long and heavy with strange emotions. She'd been mocked, tested, then praised, and finally pushed to the background. Still, deep inside, there was a quiet fire that hadn't been there before. Her fingers still tingled from touching the piano. That one moment had been more real to her than the entire night of serving plates and drinks. She had felt alive like herself. She checked the clock on the kitchen wall. 30 minutes left before she could leave. She began folding the cloth napkins, her hands moving without thinking. The other waiters were busy too, stacking dishes and cleaning trays. A few of them had overheard what happened, but no one said much. Everyone in the kitchen was used to being invisible. In the main hall, the mood was very different now. Guest. "We're still talking about this surprise piano performance." One man near the wine table told his wife that it was the highlight of the night. Another guest said she had felt like crying when the music filled the room. Videos had already been shared online by people at the party. Some clips had captions like "Waitress stuns," "Rich crowd or millionaires," "Party upstaged by unexpected talent." A group of people stood near the piano, hoping someone would play again. The jazz band had gone on break, and soft background music played from hidden speakers, but it wasn't the same. That magical moment, when Emily had poured her soul into the keys, had touched something in the air, something no one could forget. Evelyn Shaw, the theater director who had been impressed earlier, was still there. She walked slowly to the piano, touched the polished surface gently, and looked around. She didn't see Emily. She asked a nearby server again, that girl who played earlier. "Where did she go?" "I think she's in the back, ma'am," the server replied. Evelyn nodded. She wanted to talk to her. She had discovered many great talents over the years, but something about Emily had felt different. Raw, pure, and deeply emotional. She wasn't just good, she was gifted. Victor Harrow stood on the balcony above the hall, holding a glass of wine and watching the scene below. He leaned on the railing, frowning as people talked about Emily again and again. It annoyed him. This was his party. He'd spent thousands to make it perfect. And yet the one thing people remembered had nothing to do with his planning. It was the girl, the waitress, the one he had mocked. His pride hurt, but worse than that, he felt powerless. The first time in years, he had lost control of the spotlight. No one cared about his new imported wine collection. No one praised the expensive live band. Everyone was talking about her. Downstairs, Evelyn walked toward the kitchen, ignoring the surprised look of one of the supervisors. She found Emily standing by the sink, wiping her hands. Emily turned and gave a polite smile when she noticed someone approaching. "Are you Emily?" Evelyn asked gently. Yes, ma'am, Emily said quietly. I wanted to tell you something. Evelyn said, What you did tonight was extraordinary. I don't think you realize how rare that kind of talent is. Emily looked down, her face turning slightly red. Thank you. I didn't mean to cause trouble. Didn't cause trouble, Evelyn replied. You created something beautiful. It takes courage. Emily was silent for a moment. She didn't know what to say. She had never expected anyone to notice her, let alone speak to her like this. Evelyn continued. I've worked in theater and music for over 20 years. I've seen many talented people. But what you did tonight, it wasn't just skill, it was heart. I'd like to talk to you more if that's all right. Emily blinked in surprise. Me, but I don't really perform. I'm just a student. I work here part-time. I understand, Evelyn said, but I'd still like to meet with you. I think we could help each other. Emily felt her heart jump. Was this real? Was she really being offered an opportunity by someone this important? I'd be honored, she said finally, still unsure if this was a dream. Just then, Victor appeared near the doorway. He had followed Evelyn from the hall and now stood watching them, his arms crossed. Oh, you found her, he said loudly, with a fake smile. She's our little Mozart, isn't she? Emily turned stiffly. She didn't say anything. Victor stepped closer, trying to sound casual. Glad you enjoyed the performance, he told Evelyn. But let's not get too carried away. She's good, sure, but she's just a staff member, not a concert pianist. Evelyn narrowed her eyes slightly. That may be true, but I've seen enough to know when someone is worth a second look. Victor laughed softly. Everyone plays a little piano these days. You'd be surprised. I'm sure it was just a fluke. Emily bit her lip. His words stung, even though she had expected them. Out. But this time, something in her had changed. Didn't feel like shrinking away. I've been playing since I was 6, she said, her voice calm but firm. My grandfather taught me every day until he passed. I haven't had lessons in years, but I still practice every chance I get. Victor raised an eyebrow, surprised by her tone. She hadn't spoken back to him before. Evelyn smiled. You for telling me that? You clearly have discipline and passion. Those matter just as much as education. Victor rolled his eyes. Passion doesn't pay the bills, does it? Oh, Emily said, still calm. That's why I work here. Answer hit deeper than Victor expected. He opened his mouth to reply, but didn't have anything clever to say. Evelyn looked at Emily and said, Do you have any recordings of your playing? Anything at all? No, Emily replied, a little embarrassed. I never thought anyone would want to hear me? Evelyn nodded thoughtfully. Then we'll change that. Let's get you into a proper studio, or at least a good piano room. You deserve to be heard. Victor's face tightened. Are we really turning a party stunt into a career launch now? Evelyn ignored him. She handed Emily her card. Call me tomorrow. No pressure. Just think about it. Emily took the card with both hands, carefully, like it was a gift. Evelyn smiled warmly and left the kitchen. Victor stood for a moment longer, staring at Emily. She didn't look away this time. She stood tall, not proud, but no longer afraid. After Victor left, Carla came rushing over, eyes wide. Oh my God, what did she say? Who was that lady? Emily showed her the card. Evelyn Shaw. She's a theater director. Carla almost screamed. I know that name. She's famous. You're so lucky. Emily gave a small smile. Maybe, Carla said, shaking her arm. Want to go? I want to, Emily whispered. I really do. Later that night, Emily walked out of the mansion with the other waiters. The moon hung bright in the sky, and the city lights glowed in the distance. Her phone buzzed with messages from a few classmates who had seen the video online. She hadn't even known it was being recorded. One message read, That was incredible. You had no idea you could play like that. Another, why didn't you ever tell us? You're amazing. Emily smiled quietly and kept walking. The cool air brushed against her face, but she didn't feel cold. She was still the same girl with a second-hand keyboard in a tiny apartment. Still the girl who worked nights to pay rent. But now, she had something she hadn't had in a long time-hope. She didn't know where this road would lead, or if the opportunity would change her life completely. But she knew one thing for sure. She had played from her heart, in front of people who never expected anything from her, and they had listened. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the city, shining through dusty windows and quiet streets. Emily woke up early. She hadn't slept much, not because she was tired, but because her mind had been racing all night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the piano. She heard the applause. She remembered Evelyn Shaw's voice and the feel of that business card between her fingers. She sat up in her small bed, pulled her blanket around her shoulders, and stared at the ceiling. For a long time, she didn't move. Her apartment was small, just one room with a bed, a desk, a stove, and a second-hand keyboard she had bought with saved tips. But that morning, it felt different. Everything around her felt full of meaning. She had played in front of people who mattered, and something had changed inside her. She finally stood up, made a cup of tea, and sat by the window. She looked at the card again. Evelyn Shaw, a name she had only seen in newspapers or read in music articles. And now that name was written on a card in her hand with a phone number and an email address. She took a deep breath and reached for her phone. She didn't call right away. Her thumb hovered over the number. What would she even say? What if Evelyn had changed her mind? What if it had all been just a kind moment during a fancy party? But before fear could grow any bigger, she pressed the call button. It rang only once. Before a calm voice answered, Evelyn Shaw speaking. Emily's heart jumped. Hi, this is Emily, from last night. The waitress. Oh, Evelyn's voice brightened immediately. Emily, I was hoping you'd call. I'm so glad you did. Emily smiled nervously. I wasn't sure if you meant it, about what you said. I meant every word, Evelyn replied. I'm meeting with someone this afternoon at a studio downtown. I'd love for you to come by. There's a beautiful grand piano there. You can play freely. No pressure. Just you and the keys. Emily nodded quickly, then realized Evelyn couldn't see her. Yes, I'd love to. Wonderful, Evelyn said. I'll text you the address. Be there at 2, okay? Okay, thank you, really. After hanging up, Emily stared at her phone. She had taken the first step. Now it was real. She spent the next hour choosing what to wear. She didn't have expensive clothes, just a few clean blouses, jeans, and one black dress she used for weddings and interviews. She finally chose a simple white shirt and dark pants. She tied her hair back, put on some light makeup, and packed a notebook in her bag. She didn't need it, but it made her feel prepared. By 1:30 p.m., she was on the bus, sitting quietly, watching the city pass by. She didn't listen to music this time. She just let her mind wander, thinking of her grandfather, of the way his fingers moved on the old piano in his living room. He used to say, music is truth, Emily. You don't have to be rich or famous to be honest. When she reached the address, she stood outside for a minute, looking up at the building. It wasn't huge or fancy, but it had a glass door and a sign that read, Midtown Music Studio. She walked in slowly, her heart beating fast. A man at the desk smiled and pointed her toward studio room. See, as she entered, the first thing she saw was the piano. A beautiful black grand piano, polished and perfect, standing under soft studio lights. Evelyn was already there, talking to a man with glasses who looked like a music teacher or maybe a sound engineer. Evelyn turned and smiled. Emily, right on time. This is Mr. Lambert, she said, introducing the man beside her. He's a pianist and mentor here. He also records young artists. I told him about you. Mr. Lambert shook her hand gently. I've heard a lot about last night. It's a pleasure to meet you. Emily gave a shy smile. Thank you. Evelyn gestured toward the piano. Would you like to play something? Anything. Take your time, Emily. Walk toward the piano slowly. She had played many pianos in her life, but none like this. She touched the keys softly, feeling their weight, their smoothness. Then she sat down. She didn't know what to play at first, but then her fingers moved almost on their own. She began with something simple, a piece she used to play for her grandfather. It started gently, like a whisper, then grew louder. Fuller, as she played, the nerves disappeared. The room fell away. She was alone with the music again. When she finished, there was silence. Ah! Then Evelyn clapped softly. That, she said, was beautiful. Mr. Lambert nodded. You play with emotion. It's rare. You don't just know the notes. You feel them. Emily looked down, a little overwhelmed. Would you consider working with us? Evelyn asked. We could help you record some tracks. Prepare for an audition, maybe even find a sponsor for formal training. Emily stared at her, not sure if she had heard it right. Me, you want to work with me? Yes, Evelyn said kindly. You have something special. I don't say that easily. Emily's eyes filled with tears. She wiped them quickly. Sorry, I didn't think this would ever happen. Mr. Lambert smiled. It's okay. This is your moment. That afternoon, Emily recorded her first piece. Just a simple melody. But it felt like the start of something big. She stayed for 2 hours, playing different pieces, talking about her music journey, answering questions about her background. By the time she left the studio, the sun was low again, just like the evening of the party. But now, the city didn't feel so far away. She felt seen back at the mansion. Victor sat in his study, scrolling through his phone. He had avoided the videos all morning, but now they were everywhere. One video had over 500,000 views. Comments were flooding in. Who is this girl? She plays like a professional. This is better than most concerts I've been to. He read each one with growing anger. He had planned that party to impress, to show off, and instead, a waitress had stolen the show. His assistant walked in. Sir, we're getting calls from reporters asking about the girl who played at your party. Victor scowled. Ignore them. Shh. People are saying you discovered her. Victor paused. He didn't like the idea of helping someone else succeed. But he liked being forgotten even less. Fine, he said. If anyone asks, tell them I gave her a chance to perform. Tell them. It was my idea, but sir, just do it. Victor leaned back in his chair, already planning how he could turn this around to serve his own image. He didn't care about her talent. He just didn't want the story to go on without him in it. That night, Emily received a message on her phone from an unknown number. Victor Harrow here. Saw the videos. You were great. Happy to have helped you show the world your gift. Me know if you ever want to perform at another one of my events. Emily stared at the message for a long time. She didn't reply instead. She texted Evelyn thanking her for everything. That weekend, Emily's recordings were posted online by the studio. One of them reached a music blog that featured young artists. People began sharing it. Musicians from different countries left comments. A well-known pianist even reposted it with the caption, Pure Talent. Emily's inbox filled with messages. Some from fans, some from music schools, some from reporters. But she didn't get distracted. She kept practicing. She went to the studio every few days. She worked harder than ever. She still worked her waitress job, but only until her contract ended, because now she was preparing for her first public performance at a real concert hall. Her dream, the one she had buried for so long, was finally alive, and it had all started with one moment, one piano, and one man's attempt to embarrass her. But instead of breaking her, that moment revealed her. She was no longer just a waitress. She was a musician. It had been a few weeks since the night of the party, and Emily's life had changed in ways she never imagined. Every day brought something new, a meal, a phone call, a message from someone who had seen her video. People from all over the world were reaching out to her. Some wanted to hear more of her music. Some wanted to help her. Some just wanted to say thank you for the way her piano playing had touched their hearts. She still couldn't believe it sometimes. She would wake up in the morning and wonder if it was all a dream. But then she would open her phone and see a message from a music school in Germany or a fan from Japan. She would listen to the recordings she had made at the studio with Mr. Wu Lambert and remember how real everything was. She had stopped working at the mansion. Her last day as a waitress had been quiet. She had walked out of the kitchen for the final time without saying goodbye to Victor. She didn't need to. There was nothing left to say. She had entered that mansion as a girl with no voice, and left. As someone who had finally found her music again, Evelyn Shaw had kept her promise. She helped Emily prepare for her first public performance. It wasn't a big concert at first, just a small event at a community theater with about 200 people in the audience. But to Emily, it felt like the world. She practiced every day, morning, and night. She studied each piece, not just with her fingers, but with her heart. She wanted to tell stories through the keys. Stories about struggle and love and courage. On the night of the concert, she stood backstage wearing a long black dress that Evelyn had helped her buy. Her hair was tied back simply, and she wore no jewelry, no makeup, nothing flashy. She didn't want to shine with clothes. She wanted the music to speak for her. She peeked through the curtain and saw people filling the seats. Some were strangers, some were students, some were musicians. And somewhere in the middle row sat her neighbor, Mrs. Turner, who had once lent her a keyboard when her own broke. Carla, her fellow waitress friend, was sitting near the front, smiling with pride. Even Mr. Lambert was there, sitting next to Evelyn, looking calm and proud. Emily closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She remembered her grandfather's words again, like she always did when she was nervous. "Music is truth," he had said. "Let it speak for you." When her name was announced, she stepped onto the stage. The lights were warm on her skin, and the room was quiet. The piano stood in the center, shining under the spotlight. She walked over, sat down, and touched the keys. Her hands didn't shake this time. She felt calm, steady, and ready. She began with the same piece she had played at Victor's party. But this time, it was even stronger. There were no voices mocking her, no cameras snaking around, no pressure to prove anything. She played because she loved to. She played because she needed to. Note by note, she told her story. The audience was silent, listening deeply. Some closed their eyes, some leaned forward in their seats. And as the music moved from soft to powerful, from sad to hopeful, people felt everything she wanted them to feel. She didn't speak a single word, but every key spoke for her. When she finished the last note, the silence hung in the air for a long second, and then the applause began. It started slowly, gently, then it grew louder, stronger. People stood to their feet, clapping with real emotion. Emily stood and bowed, her face calm but glowing from inside. It wasn't just approval she felt, it was understanding.
How?
She had connected with people. Her music had reached them. After the show, many came to meet her. They didn't come just to say good job. They came to say, "You moved me." Woman had tears in her eyes. Young boy said he wanted to learn piano now. Old man said he hadn't cried in years until he heard her play. Evelyn hugged her backstage. "You were brilliant," she whispered. "That was your stage, and you owned it." Mr. Lambert gave her a nod of deep respect. "You didn't just perform, shared a part of your soul." Emily thanked them both, her eyes watery, but her smile wide. News of her performance spread quickly online again. A video clip was posted that night, and it went viral within hours. More calls came, more emails. A music school in London invited her for a scholarship audition. A foundation offered to fund her training. Small label even asked if she would like to record an album. Victor, sitting in his mansion, watched all of this unfold from his phone. He had tried to take credit earlier, telling people he was the one who gave her a chance. But now, the truth was clear to everyone. He hadn't helped her. He had tried to humiliate her. And that story had also spread. A popular news site posted an article titled, "Millionaire Tries to Mock Waitress, Her Piano Stuns the World." The comments weren't kind to Victor. People called him arrogant, jealous, small-minded. Some even called for him to apologize publicly. But Emily didn't care what Victor did or didn't say. She had no interest in revenge or attention. She was too busy moving forward. She spent the next few months between two places, her tiny apartment. In the music studio, she practiced, studied, recorded, and played. She met musicians who encouraged her, mentors who guided her, then fans who believed in her. And slowly, she began to build a new life. She recorded her first album, a collection of 5 songs, all written by her. The album was simple: just her and the piano. But it was full of feeling. It was called the Room of Silence, named after the quiet kitchen where she had once hidden after playing at Victor's party. The place where she first understood her own strength. The album reached thousands of people online. Music critics praised it. Blogs wrote about her journey. And more than anything, people felt inspired. She was invited to perform at music schools, art festivals, and small concert halls. She wasn't famous in a big way. She didn't care for big lights or screaming fans. She just wanted to play. Evening, she stood on the same stage where her grandfather had once played, in a hall that honored old pianists. She was introduced as a rising star, with a story of heart, humility, and hidden talent. She wore a necklace with a tiny piano charm, a gift from Carla. As she looked out at the audience that night, she saw faces filled with warmth, not judgment. She saw people who weren't rich or powerful, but who came because they believed in music. Real music. She played a new piece that night. It was dedicated to all the people who had ever been overlooked, ignored, laughed at, or pushed into the background. It was for the waiters, the cleaners, the dreamers, who carried quiet hope. It was for herself. After the show, as people gathered around her, someone asked, "What would you say to the man who tried to humiliate you that night?" Emily paused, then smiled softly. "I'd thank him." The crowd went quiet. "He gave me the chance to play," she continued. "He thought he was testing me, but really, he helped me remember who I was." Sometimes, the people who try to bring us down are the very ones who push us toward the light. It wasn't bitterness in her voice. It was truth. Emily had no anger. In her heart, she had music, she had strength, she had her story. A story that had begun with a challenge and ended with a standing ovation.